Hi.
Hi.
Are you cheating? You're looking at my notes already?
Yeah,
No, don't do that. So in Iron Man, you have a role. You're the chauffeur for Tony Stark.
I have a role, yeah. To the people, to the average moviegoer, I am a chauffeur. But to the Marvel fan, I'm Happy Hogan, who ends up being a very important character later on if we are lucky enough to make more of these movies.
Now, did you have to sleep with the director to get that role?
I sleep with the director far more often than I'd like to admit, unfortunately.
Now, Iron Man, it's funny because, I grew up reading the comic book, huge Iron Man fan, but in terms of the Marvel Universe, I mean, the next movie to get made, I would think, was it a challenge to get Iron Man to the big screen?
Well, it was a challenge not to get it made as much as to get it made in a way that I was proud of, because it could have very easily have been one of many, there are dozens of superhero movies, and Iron Man's a character that, although Marvel fans know him very well for 40 years, he's one of the important guys, people who aren't comic book readers never heard of him. And so there was this sense that here's this B-list, superhero that, why do we even want to see another superhero franchise? We already have so many good ones going. It seemed like retreading old territory. So my challenge was how to make it different, how to set it apart tonally. A big part of that, and also the technology that was available because of the work that had been done on films like Transformers. You could really do this tech in a very interesting way. But the biggest thing that gave me comfort to know that I could actually do a good job with it was casting Robert, and that was my biggest challenge in this process.
And not only that, I mean, I think it's the first rock and roll superhero.
Yeah.
Because AC/DC, you got
yeah.
hardcore music
Yes,
that sets the tone for this, which also describes Tony Stark's personality.
Right. Tony Stark's attitude. And Iron Man's always been sort of a heavy metal hero, and he's so similar in so many ways to Batman that we really wanted to separate ourselves from that film. Batman, the first one was really good. I'm sure the second one's going to be really good as well. They're both billionaires. They're both self-made heroes. Batman lives in Gotham City. It's very gothic and dark and moody. And Christian Bale's sort of a heavy performer. And with casting Robert and putting it in Los Angeles and having, have guitars over the soundtrack and AC/DC and Black Sabbath, and him gambling in Vegas and just living that life and driving the fast cars.
He's not a recluse like Bruce Wayne is.
Exactly.
He's out there living a billionaire's lifestyle.
Yeah, they're both flawed people, but Bruce Wayne's the type of guy when he gets depressed, he sort of broods alone in his room and listens to music. This dude gets out, gets bombed, and tries to pick up a girl and have a one-night stand.
Private plane with stripper poles in it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Downey, you have no doubt about his capabilities 10 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, he's he was my dream, and the minute he was cast, I had a vision for the whole film, and I knew it would be different and special, and set itself apart. Now, whether it was the appetite of the audience, I didn't know, but I knew I would love it. And now, thankfully, it seems from talking to people like you, from seeing all the marketing research come back, people really like Robert, and they like Robert in this role, and they're ready to, I think everybody's rooting for him, and that wasn't obvious at the time. When I told the studio I wanted to work with him, they had a lot of apprehension. But he did a screen test. He was so good and so Tony Stark in it that they knew that even though they were taking a bit of a dice throw on it as to whether it would be commercially accepted, it ended up being something that he was just so perfect in his performance that it was worth taking that chance, and it seems to have paid off so far.
Was there any discussions about the villain in this movie? I don't mean Jeff Bridges, but I mean just in terms like, if this was made 50, 60 years ago, it would be the Nazis, it would be the Cold War, it would be the Russians.
That's right.
So now it's kind of like, is it difficult to find someone to kind of pitch Iron Man against?
Well, it is difficult. And in the history of Iron Man, he did fight against characters like Crimson Dynamo that represented the Soviet Union. And pre-Tony Stark, there was, Captain America fighting the Nazis and stuff. So when you have a big bad guy, it's easy. When Iron Man was invented, originally by Stan Lee, it was Vietnam, and he was captured by Viet Cong, and he was a weapons designer. It was equally as confusing of a situation as it is now, I think, as far as the politics of the military involvement of the day. And Iron Man isn't a guy that's necessarily standing for everything that's wonderful. He's sort of selfish, he's a profiteer. He's not the most liked guy in the Marvel Universe, but he does go through a transformation over the course of this film that brings him into a sense of enlightenment where he understands that maybe the things that he's done by designing weapons in this world and creating an even worse political landscape by his contributions, ends up being something that he takes stock in, and he creates a change in his own life, and then decides to become Iron Man, become a superhero who's trying to help heal the world, and not somebody who's just profiting off of it. And that transition and that transformation is something that's rare in a movie of the genre. Usually, you know, Superman's a great guy from the beginning, a great guy at the end, he fights some bad guys, but he's essentially an arc-less character. This guy, Tony Stark, is a guy that's almost like an Ebenezer Scrooge who goes through a complete transformation. And as a director, that's a golden opportunity.
All of that plus Peter Billingsley. I did notice him in that.
Peter Billingsley shaved his head into a horseshoe.
Yes, which is great. Awesome job.
Great, cheers.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.